Welcome back everybody, another mod video on here. Now which one is it gonna be? The Centipede, the Space Invaders, the Asteroids? Oh, no, it's not gonna be this one. I know a lot of you guys waiting on this one after that Pac-Man release on here. I were able to get so many games on that one machine. And we're going to get a whole bunch on here with this layout here. So that's coming. I promise you that's coming. That's going to be next after this. But what we're doing here tonight, the Asteroids and Centipede. Alright, so we're going to start out here first with the Asteroids on here, and just as we did yesterday with the Final Fight and the Street Fighter, make sure you download the image. It's the same image which we're going to be using on here. It's a default with nothing on there, just the layout, your splash screen will be on there, and you know the basic installations on there, and we're gonna do the rest. So if you're doing the Asteroids, obviously you want the horizontal, and if you're doing the Centipede mod, you want to go with the vertical. So that's the difference on there. Make sure you download the right one, otherwise your screen's gonna be a bit off. So starting things with the Asteroids, once you got your image, you know you've downloaded, whether you're using Wind32Disk Imager or if you're on the Mac and you're using, you know, through Apple Pie Baker, you got your image written on the disk there. We're going to plug this in on here, and we're going to get this going. And you know, just make sure, as always, you know, you have your wires on there, you have your video converter on there, and your Raspberry Pi, whether you're using Raspberry Pi 2 or 3. Either one of those models will work on here. Now on here, on this one, it's going to be a little bit slightly different. You're going to need a USB encoder, which is going to be for your buttons on here. Okay, and then you're going to need to plug another mini USB for your spinner, or on the Centipede, your trackball. We will need the buttons just on the USB encoder. Now, you are also going to need to put in additional 4 either buttons or joystick. I recommend buttons on here, you know, this way you don't have to use the 5-pin or even this. Just keep going on here. There's some, I mean, there's only 7. You'll have plenty of buttons still left over here. You only need 4 for your up, down, left, right on here. And I'm just going to use regular buttons on there. You don't have to plug a joystick. It might even be better, because I know people were saying that they were having some issues with like the Ghost controller joystick on there. So instead of doing the 5-pin or the hub here, just go right across with the pins, and then when we set up our controls, we're going to use them as our up, down, left, right, and then we could discard them afterwards. But RetroPie does require for you to input that before we could put any of the buttons. So that's all. And I just have it set up with my, you know, player 1 start, player 2 start, and then the buttons going all across. So the other thing is on the spinner. Now, when you have this plugged into the stock, you don't have to do this, but when you have it plugged into the Raspberry Pi, you will have to remove, there's a sticker on here. Okay, I already got it removed, like a tape that you just take off, and there's 3 pins on here. Initially, they're set on off. You're gonna have to switch them to the on position on there. You got to get like a, I don't know, like a tweezer or scissors, something sharp, small, that you could, because they're very small on here, the switches. You just have to switch them. Otherwise, your player is going to be moving very small, like you know, very slow. So make sure you do make that. So basically, we have the spinner. Gets connected to the 12-in-1 board on here, interface board. So that's where the connection goes, and then you're not going to use this. That's for the stock Arcade1up. You got to plug in the mini USB, and that's going to go into your Raspberry Pi, and the other one is for my USB encoder for the buttons. And then you could plug in either one here for your keyboard. Okay, because you will need a keyboard to initially set this up, because right now we have no controller, nothing's inputted on here. So I'm gonna connect my keyboard here. I'm gonna load up the image, and then we'll get started. Alright, we got our image booted up on here. I got my keyboard connected here, and once again, that's the first thing we're gonna do. We're gonna input our keyboard controls on here so we can navigate this thing, and then I'm gonna input our buttons. And once again, when we do our joystick here for the axis for your up, down, left, right, use those additional buttons. If you have a joystick, then obviously you could just use the joystick on there. So let's get this going. Do the keyboard here first. Once again, hold any button down, and then you could set this up here. Set your hotkey here. I'll use as my select, which is the space bar. And we're done with the keyboard. Onto the buttons now. So hit start, go to your configure input, and hit yes. Now we're going to need to configure our buttons on here. Now we have those 4 buttons as our dummy buttons, which we're going to use as our up, down, left, right. And then when we set up the buttons, you could do it one of 2 ways. You could make this your select, that's your start. So then this way, when we use like the MAME 2003 emulator, by pressing these 2, it'll exit you out, so you don't even have to set the hotkey, it'll be already done. Or we could skip the select and start and just do A, B, you know, X, Y, L, R, L2. This way, this is set as our A button, and it will be also work for our image. Okay, so if you do it select and start here, then we're just gonna need to go and configure that input in the Droid2Key file, and I'll show you guys how to do that. Alright, so hold any button here to configure this, and let's set up our buttons. Alright, so I used button 7, 8, 9, 10, and then here we're going to have start as our player 2, select as our player 1, and then A, B, X, L, X, Y, L. That's it. 6 buttons we have here, and then we skip the rest. And then we're going to make player 1 as our hotkey on here. Now if you did it differently, that's fine too. I'm just going to show you how to configure that. So our hotkey will be here, and click OK. This way these two will be our exit, pressing these two together. Now advanced main, we're going to still have to set that up anyway. So if we go back to options on here, go to our RetroArch. The only thing here we're going to do is our hotkeys, alright? Depending how you set this up on that configuration. Go to settings, click A, and then go to input, and then our hotkey binds. See, I set it up as select and start, so it's button 0 and 1 for me. So the quit RetroArch is already set as 1. And my hotkey down here should be 0, which it is, button 0. Alright, and then you could set up the other ones if you wanted to as well, or if you used different buttons here, just make that your hotkey and your exit. And then I'm going to make mine, like I always do, user friendly. Everything else I'm going to set up as my player 2, like all the ones that have auto on there. This way there'll be no other hotkey function besides the exit. Okay, so anyone that you see auto besides the hotkey, like reset here, I'm going to change this to player 2. Same thing with save slot, player 2. This one. And our load and save here will be all button 1. This way none of them will do any functions, and I'll be able to exit out. Like I said, if you want those functions, you're more than likely, you know, if you want to use your hotkey, let's say put this as your menu, maybe a reset button, you could do it. Once we're done here, we're going to back out, and then all the way to the beginning here, and then go to configuration file and save current configuration. And we are done at the RetroArch on here. We're going to back out, quit, and then like I said, depending how you set this up, if you set it up like me with your select and start here, we're going to need to make this select as our key to continue on the load images. If you set this as your A button on here, then you don't need to, you could skip this step on here. So that's the advantage of if you set this up as A, B, X, Y, and you skip select and start on there, because you really don't need them. We'll go to file manager. I just wanted to set it up this way, so just to show you the different ways. And then here we're going to need to back up, so the 2 dots, back up again, go to OPT, then RetroPie, then supplementary, and then run command, and right here Droid2Key, we're going to highlight it, and then on here 4 is edit, and that's your F4. So we're going to click F4, and then we got to scroll down here a bit. Scroll down until you see this right here. Getting configs for your D-pad, button A, B, X, Y, and we're just gonna change the A to whatever we set our player 1 key as. If you set it as A, you don't have to change this, but I did, so mine is gonna be select. If you made it as your start, you put start in there, whatever you set your player 1 button, because that's what we're going to use to continue during that load image. And once we have this set, let's hit Control and X on the keyboard. It's going to ask you down here to save it. We're going to say Y for yes, and then enter. That's it, we're done here. Click F10. You're not going to do anything with the spinner yet. And now we just got to set up our Wi-Fi, and so let's go there now. Options. You're going to go down to Wi-Fi. Mine is already set up, but that's where you're going to set it up. Here you could get your IP. Once you have that, both of those inputted, go to your Raspberry config. And let's just expand the file just in case. And that's done on here. We go to Advanced Options, and the first one here, Expand File System. Click Enter, OK. And let's just make sure in our interface options here, make sure SSH is enabled. OK, once you have that done, we're going to click Finish, and we're going to reboot on here. And then we'll go onto our computer. Like I say, if you're using the PC on here, you use your WinSCP, or on the Mac, Cyberduck on there to get these files across. So go to the right folder on there, and then in the ROM section on there, I do have it set up where it's advanced MAME. Most of the games will be advanced MAME. If it's trackball games or spinner games, they'll be done through advanced MAME. The only ones I use the MAME 2003, because we don't have to use the advanced MAME, is the ones that are the buttons, like Asteroids, Asteroids Deluxe. You know, those don't use spinners or trackball, so I just use the regular MAME 2003. Now, some guys did mention that they were using MAME 2003 for their trackball or their spinner games. I don't know. I prefer to use advanced MAME, so that's what the ROM set is set on there. If you want to use MAME 2003, just replace those with yours on there, because the ones that are on there now for the trackball and the spinner are the advanced MAME ROM set. So those might give you problems if you try to use it through MAME 2003 as opposed to the advanced MAME. Alright, so we got our images, our ROMs on here. We just need to hit start here and then just restart emulation. Hit yes, and this should make everything pop out here, all our games, and we're gonna set our emulators and everything. Okay. Once again, if we go to options and our run command here, okay. For now, we're going to leave the first one enabled because we're going to have to set our emulators. Once it's set, you could come back here to disable it if you don't want that box to appear or somebody press a button to go into the run command screen. This one's always going to be disabled. We don't use that. Joystick has to be enabled, otherwise you won't be able to press the button. And then here, currently 2, we're going to change this to, I guess, I don't know, 99. 9. This way that image will stay up there for a while until you press the button, and then click exit. Okay, and like I said, for all the games that use the spinner or the trackball, we're going to use the advanced MAME emulator. For games like say Asteroids, Asteroid Deluxe, Gravatar, Phoenix. Those don't use any trackball spinners, it's just all button games. And on those we're going to use MAME 2003. Okay, if you don't want to use that, or like I said, you want to use MAME 2003 for your spinner, or you want to use advanced MAME for everything, just update those ROMs. Like I said, this ROM set that's in there now that's how it is. I have the 2003 MAME for your button games and your advanced MAME for your spinner. Okay, so we'll go into a spinner game first, and that's going to be Arcanoid here. So let's hit A. Our image should load up, which it does here. It says press one button to continue. And if you set this up on here, like I said, either make this your select or start, and then change the joy to key script, or in the beginning, if you set this as your A button, then you're good to go. So right now, if we press anything on here, nothing will happen. We press player 1, boom, we're in. Okay, now we have Arcanoid on here. It's using the advanced main. That's the default right now, so I didn't have to change anything on here. What we will need to, though, we'll need to configure this on here, and also the way we exit on advanced main. It's not going to be player 1 and 2. You can't exit, even though we set our hotkey. That's only for the MAME 2003, Final Burn Alpha emulators. You know, MAME for all. Those, yes, those use this, but for advanced MAME, we're gonna have to set up. So let's do that first. We're gonna, and again, it's not like the Final Burn Alpha or MAME where you could hit the hotkey and X to bring up that RetroArch menu. You gotta hit Tab. Okay, so we're gonna hit Tab, and the first thing is the first one here, Input General. Okay, if we hit Enter there, go to User Interface. Okay, and we're gonna need to scroll down on here to this one, all the way down here where it says UI Cancel, which is Escape. To exit the emulator on the keyboard, you simply just hit Escape. Okay, we don't have Escape on here, so we're gonna need to set that, and we could set it as 2 buttons. And what we're gonna do, we're going to hit the A button. That's going to tell you to pick which button you want to use, and we're going to press both of these at the same time. Okay, you could use a button combination. So this way, all your emulators on here will exit the same way. Okay, so let's do that now. We're going to hit Enter on here, and then we're going to hit our 2 buttons. There you go. I have both my player 1 and player 2 on here as my cancel. Okay, if you wanted to configure anything else here, like to move up and down on the menus, you could do that here if you want to, but I'm gonna leave it. I mainly do these menus with the keyboard anyway, because we don't have a joystick. It's pretty difficult to do it otherwise. So we're gonna back out here now, and then we don't need to do anything here. Our player 1 controls everything. This is for like a general setup on here. We're gonna do it game by game, you know, because some games have less buttons than others. So let's return to main menu, and then right here, input this game. That's the first thing. So here you could set your player 1 start, your coins and everything. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make player 1 start as this. Player 2 will be here, start, and coin is going to be the same thing. Coin 1 will be here, and our coin 2 will be our player 2. So this way we have our coins and start buttons set up on here. Arcanoid only uses 1 button, so player 1 button, we're going to make that right here as this. Okay, nothing here. Player 2 is going to use the same button. So, same button for both on there. Okay, then we could go back here, return to main menu, Okay, here's our dip switches. Okay, if you go to dip switches, you could change here your difficulty, coinage on here as well. Sometimes they will have free play on here, some games don't. I'll leave it as is on here, but you can mess around with this if you wanted to make any type of changes to the dip switches. Right now I'm going to leave it, there's no medium, so I'm going to leave it as it is. Go back, and then analog, this is where we set whether we're doing our trackball or we're doing our spinner. This is where we would change it. The digital speed doesn't matter, but the you know, like the sensitivity, the percentage on there, that we do have to configure sometimes. Now, you know, I haven't messed around with all the games, but if anybody has time and wants to go through all the games on here, there's not many games right now. Like I said, I'm gonna release these weekly, so we'll have time to configure these each week. Just post in the comments, you know, which ones you use, or you know, any games that you have configured and you feel that it does feel, you know, arcade or close to how it was on the original on here. So I need that old school gamer, man, you know, that, you know, that knows all these classics games, man. I know Wagner Tech, I think it is, use this, and I'm gonna post put a picture up of the way he set up his on here. This is his configuration. If you guys want to check that out to see if that works, how good that is on there. If not, you know, like I said, test this out. If it's moving too slow, obviously you want to increase it. If it's too fast, slow it down. But let me know what you guys will use on your configuration here, and maybe we could you know, set this up as best as we could. And then once you do that, once that's set, we'll return to menu, and then just make sure you hit here, calibrate joystick, hit enter on there. That'll save everything, you know. There's also video, audio settings here you can mess around with. But we'll return to game on here, and then we're going to test it out, make sure we could exit. Like I said, I made this as the exit button. Press that, boom, we're out of the game. Let's go back into Arcade though. So everything now should be working on here. Test everything out here. Coin 1 works. If we want to do 2 players, we get another 2 coins, and then now you could pick 1 or 2 players. So let's say 1 player only, and that's it. Game's loaded on here. We're able to move. Yeah, it's definitely going slow on here, so we're definitely gonna have to change the settings on that, you know. So let's back out here. I want to show. So that's how you do the spinner games. Okay. Now let's go to a game like Asteroids. Asteroids uses just buttons. Okay. When we hit the start button, I mean the A button, and then when we hit the start button again, just to bring up the that dialog on there. We could change our emulator. This, okay. So the default is advanced main. So you keep that as is, and then all the ones that just use the buttons, we're gonna change here. The second one, select emulator for ROM only. Okay, and we're gonna change that as main 2003. Okay, so Asteroids is gonna use that. Don't change the first one, because that, like I said, that will change for the rest, and you don't want to do that. Just do the specific ROM. Okay, we'll use advanced main for everything else. And once you have that, we can launch. Now on main 2003, our exit is already configured. I don't even have to go in. If I press these 2, boom, I'm exit. So that's one thing you don't have to configure. So that's set. But now I'm gonna set up the controls on here. Okay, and these games don't use any joystick, I think. So now there's 2 ways you could do it. We could do it through the RetroArch on here, which is our hotkey and X. So we could go through here just how we did the Final Burn Alpha on Street Fighter. You could do the same thing here. You could go to options. You could set your different there's a whole bunch of settings here you could mess around with on here, your dip switches and all that. And you could also do your controls here. Okay, you could set up your controls on here. Okay, now the other way, if you don't want to use the RetroArch menu for the main emulator, you could just simply hit tab and it'll bring this up. Okay, and then on here you're going to do input this game, and this is where you could set all your buttons on here. Okay, to so you have your rotate left right, your hyperspace, thrust and fire. You would set all that up on here. Okay, your coins, player 1 start to, so it's the same thing. So okay, the way Asteroids is set up, you have your player 1 left, which you're gonna set here as your rotate left. Player 1 right is gonna be your rotate right. Okay, then there's 3 buttons, button 1, 2, and 3. Button 3 on top should be your hyperspace right here. Okay, button 1 is your fire right here, and then button 2 is your thrust. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3, and then your rotate left right on here. Okay, then you're gonna set, like I say, your coin 1 is gonna be your player 1, coin 2 is player 2, and then right here, player 1 is, start is gonna be this button, and player 2 start is over here. Okay, once that's done, let's return on here, return to game, and yeah, we got our rotate left, rotate right, hyperspace button, then our, then our thrust and fire. So everything's set up on here for Asteroids. We could exit that out. So that's how you set up the buttons on here. So I'm not going to show all of them, but you get the, spinner games and the button games. So once that's done, let's go into now attract mode. First, we're going to go to our RetroPie setting, because we want to boot into attract mode every time, so we don't have to go into emulation. The way we do that, go into right here, RetroPie settings, then your configuration tools, and then auto start, and we're going to do manual edit. Okay, and we're going to change emulation here station to attract. So hit delete, type in attract. Okay, attract space auto. That's it, it's done. Alright, hit OK. Then we got to back out. Now if we do a reboot here, I'm gonna reboot. This should take us into attract mode. So anytime you power this thing on, you turn it on, it should go right into attract mode. There's our splash screen. And there we go, we're in attract mode. Okay, so now we're just gonna hit tab, go all the way up to emulators, up to arcade, hit enter, and then scroll down here to generate ROM collection, hit enter, override yes. Let's get back and back. And there's our games. So we have our games here loaded now, ready to go. Once we set up all our controls and everything, Now we need to set up our controls here, track mode to navigate. We only have the spinner, so we're gonna go to hit tab again, go to your controls. We need to be able to move up and down. So up, we're gonna add input, and we're gonna rotate this thing left. So mouse left will be our to go up. We're gonna go back and then down, add input. Now we're gonna spin this to the right. Okay, so there you go, mouse right. Okay, let's go back, and then right here select, so we can select the game. We're gonna do our A button. Hit A button, come back. If you want to add anything else on here, you could. Menus button, favorites button, you know. And then all the way down here, your mouse threshold. You know what? That's actually not bad as far as the speed on here. It's not bad. Well, you can mess around there how you want it. But that's how it's set by default. Okay. And that's it. So we're able to navigate here. We're able to go to our games, you know, and everything's working. So the only thing you have to do, like I said, change the sensitivity on the games on here for your spinner games. For the Centipede, it's the same setup on here. The only thing is it's all advanced MAME, so you don't have to change any of the emulators on that one. And you have no buttons game, so it's gonna run all on emulator, but it's the same type of setup on here. So I'm not gonna go through the whole Centipede. Like I said, let me know what settings you guys are gonna be using on your games if you guys test out the spinner, and also let me know what games you would like to see on here. This is just a starter pack. I just wanted you guys to have the layout, interface, your controls, everything set up. Like I said, I'll be adding new ones on here. I'll try to do each week on there. You could use the comments there to, you know, what you would want to see on here. All right, that's it. That does it here. You know, if you guys have any questions or comments, leave them below.